Mr. Chairman, my name is Addis from Erie. I have two concerns on the presentation that was marvelous in presented. The first one is a statement made by the second presenter. Technology is not enough. I think that's a very important statement, but we probably need to have more collaboration talking about technological adoption by relatively more proportional governments. The second one, which is probably a big talk in Africa or maybe developing countries, is scaling up success stories. We are very cautious when you make that recommendation, that you cannot scale up all these success stories just like that. You need to be very context-specific, so on and so on. Can you elaborate a little bit on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Salomon Balada. I'm from the Association of Agricultural Professionals here in Ethiopia. In presentation of the overview of the book, which I would like to congratulate the authors on the book on medium scale, it's been pointed out that a number of driving forces are involved in achieving this success, the stories that's been presented, and out of which of these driving forces, investment in science and technology and other complementary infrastructure market activities were also indicated. But considering this investment, as it has been pointed out by the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, there is a lack of fund and also major constraints financial resources in order to be able to sustain some of the successes in agricultural development. Of course, I'm not going to the history of agricultural development in Ethiopia, but I can mention just two, like those are the ones that's been going on in the 1970s on the comprehensive agricultural development of cattle, supported by SIDA, and of course the latest AID assisted project on livestock and grain plant development of the 1980s, which were really just about to take off until funds were discontinued and well, we couldn't speak of much success. So I would like to ask the authors, how do we sustain success in agricultural development? We can't be able to just afford success, but how do we go on, keeping on, without really considering investments and the sources of investment, particularly donor, private, or public investments in agricultural development, particularly foreign sources of investment in order to be able to sustain success in agricultural development in Africa. Thank you.
Third question.
My name is Kim. I'm in Mocha, and I'm very glad to see that we have a success story in mining and in agriculture with that. So this caught my attention, and that's why I'm glad to say that I am participating in this meeting. Meanwhile, as I was looking through this, I couldn't find Ethiopia, and I wondered, is there no success stories? And then I came across this pamphlet, Land Grabbing by Foreign Investors in Developing Countries, Risks and Opportunities. And I wondered if you could give some light on this regarding Ethiopia, because like every week there's a story on Ethiopian media regarding land grabbing by investors for flower gardening, for lodges, for such issues. And I'm wondering how much does this affect the agriculture in this country, and how much does it affect our farmers?
I can start briefly. I guess on the last question, I can defer to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
on that. But just to say that, you know, it's always a mixed bag. There are always trade-offs, pros and cons. Private sector investment in agriculture is important. The form it takes and the returns that a country receives, whether it's foreign currency or new technologies or new ideas or something, is a point of consideration. Ultimately, you need to have good empirical evidence to say, you know, is this benefiting the country or is this harming the country? So investing in the evidence, like we said, is really important. The other issue, I guess, was, you know, sustaining successes in Ethiopia. For instance, Kadu and some of the other successes from the 1970s and the 1980s. On that, based on what we've learned from Millions Fed, is really that, again, invest in the proof. I mean, you want to be able to say that, you know, this was a proven success. We've independently and rigorously evaluated this, and we know that it works. Invest in building the political backing and political willingness to make successes move forward at the highest levels. We need those. I think in terms of Kadu and then watershed-based development that was mentioned earlier, you know, one of the interesting things is that a lot of the integrated rural development schemes of the 1970s and the 1980s actually came to an end. They actually failed in many ways, partly because there was no impact assessment, or the impact assessment that was done showed fairly negative returns. I guess the other point about integrated rural development programs, like Kadu, like watershed management projects, is that originally they were not linked to markets. They were all about introducing a new technology within a given area. They were area development programs. And what people sort of forgot, and this is 30, 40 years ago, is that linking to the market, among other things, was really important. That, you know, you can increase productivity in maize, for instance, or legumes or something, but unless farmers have an outlet where they can sell that surplus, then it's pointless. So in many cases, and this comes through in the Millions Fed initiative, it's investing in the science and technology, it's investing in local area development and community participation, and it's investing in the market infrastructure to allow farmers to leverage the benefits of markets.
David has very effectively responded to one of the questions from our colleague from Erie about why technology alone is not enough. I fully agree with the implicit that it is generating technology is important, it needs to get out, it needs to be in partnership. Let me pick up on 2 points and clarify what I meant by scaling up, and the comment I made was replicating successes. Because the point had been made to me, okay, now we have these 20 successes, do we go about and invest in homestead food gardening in every country and replicate those, or Operation Flood and so forth? And the point we wanted to make there is, I think it is important to look at some of the key factors that made these successes possible. And then they need to be context specific for that particular country and adapt. And that brings me to the second point, building on David's point about supporting and scaling of successes. One other thing that does come out in some of these success stories is the two things that do come about: the ownership of the success and the role at the end of the day of community involvement also. But not just communities, but at the end of the day successes have to be owned, and somebody needs to want to own them and somebody needs to want to basically keep them. We found that the success in Eastern and Southern Africa on improving maize and disseminating it at the end of the day got stalled because policymakers did not own the sustaining of that success. But it is important to also then link it to many of these successes are successes that were born out of evolution and adaptation and experimentation and innovation, and having the space to do that. The homestead garden in Bangladesh started out on a small scale, adapted, evolved, transformed itself, brought in nutrition education and other things. I think one also has to look for the space for adaptation, and the space for adaptation and evolution comes at the end of the day to ownership also. To own something and adapt it and transform it. And let me leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, I think in light of what the time has been allocated, I've managed to sacrifice some time.
Thank you. There is this issue of land grabbing. I think this issue, in my belief, didn't emanate from our internal objective situation, but it is an imposed one. Currently, there are parts of the international community which are advocating the land related this issue of land grabbing in Africa, especially. When it comes to Ethiopia, identifying and preparing land for private investment is not a new issue as far as our rural development policy is concerned. It is clearly depicted and stated in the policy that in areas where there is ample arable land and in areas where there is less population density, will make readily available the land that we have in those areas for private investment. But we are not in a position to accomplish this task. But currently we are giving due attention to implement this policy statement into practice. So we are trying to identify land, as I have mentioned in my note address, up to now 1.6 million hectares in different parts of the country is already identified. This activity is parallelly done with that of, without changing the policies that we have, that our main focus is on the smallholder farming. This activity will complement, and we believe it will complement, the smallholder agricultural development in this country. It complements because it will bring foreign direct investment, it will definitely create job opportunity to the citizens, it will add to the economy. There will be an increase in production and productivity when this private sector develops this underdeveloped and untapped agricultural resource, so that the issue of land grabbing is not a problem and an issue in this country. The issue is whether we are able to attract, whether we have, and we are competitive to other countries which are the same resource, so that we can have our share from the international investment cake, so that this sector, I mean the private sector, will contribute a lot in the agricultural development of this country. So this is what the government policy has been and is. Finally, I want to comment on the book. It's good that we have best practice identified, because we can adopt and adapt all these best practices in our objective situation, and we can have different menus so that we can choose the one which better fits the country objective situation. But the issue is also we have a number of best practices in Ethiopia in the agricultural sector. The issue is how we can scale them up. The problem, the challenge that we have in this country is we have so many tourist sites as far as agricultural technologies are concerned. But the problem is how can we disseminate all these new innovative, technologies, best practices to the majority of the farmers. So I appeal that future studies better give due attention how can we scale up such types of best practices in different parts of the world. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Honorable Arjun Tefera for the clarification on these issues raised by the participants. I think we come to the end of the session and lunch is waiting. I've already given my 10 minutes for the discussions. So I want to just say a few words on behalf of the African Union Commission on commending the effort being done in bringing solutions to challenges and today's problems. I just recall the book written by Jeffrey Cobb, The End of Poverty, and it addresses many cases where it not only addresses agriculture, of course, but it addresses in development centers where science-based practices have always brought solutions, and the issue of spreading and getting the message across to different parts of the world where you can scale up these practices remains a challenge. I think in today's times where we see many alarming outcomes of addressing the ongoing negative aspect of people on poverty, people going on hunger, and failure to meet deadlines and targets in terms of MDGs, and this book comes in time to bring some hope. On the positive side, millions fed. We hope to meet again to